That man and his merch.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Hang on, that's the wrong tank engine. Hello and welcome to That Man. This is some merchandise, and since I've been very young, there's been a certain series that I've always wanted to collect. I had a few of these when I was very young, but I never ever got the full series, and I still don't, because they pretty much went out of print, and now there's certain volumes which command far too much money. Darn. And that is called the Railway series. Now, for those who don't know what the Railway series is, it is a series based on the stories by the Reverend W. Awdry, and these are the original basis for the Thomas the Tank Engine series. That's right, we're doing a Thomas the Tank Engine video. This can't be any worse than the last one I did all those years ago, which somehow is still one of the most popular ones on the channel. Weird. Anyways, yes, these are the original stories. The first few, I think it's like the first 26 were done by the Reverend W. Awdry, and then after that it became, it was done by Christopher Awdry, his son. And interestingly enough, these were actually done by the Reverend W. Awdry originally as stories to cheer up his son, who was about 3 or 4 years old at the time and had measles. And isn't that interesting? It obviously became the thing that his son would do, and obviously a huge cultural icon, at least in the UK, and I think abroad as well. I think it's very popular in America and Japan as well. But yeah, since I've been very young, I only had a handful of these, and a lot of them were very much hand-me-downs. So I always wanted to get the full set. I still don't. There's a few that I'm missing, but these are the ones I do have. Number 1. The Threeway Engines. This is the first one, and introduces us to Gordon, Edward and Henry. Yes, Thomas the Tank Engine doesn't even appear in these, but not for long, as in Volume 2, Thomas the Tank Engine. Yay. He's actually a really horrible person. It's really weird. In fact, all of the characters quite early on are very spiteful and quite mean. It's weird. Then we have James the Red Engine, Tank Engine Thomas again, and interestingly enough, this was the very first one I had, not this particular edition. I've got some others that's in the loft that's been stored away for a long time, but I ended up getting a massive bundle with most of them again. And this is one, I remember moving into this house when I was like 3 or 4 years old, going into the shed, and there was an abandoned copy of Tank Engine Thomas again in the shed, coincidentally, which also happened to be my favourite thing at that point. I think that my parents put it there as a way to make me move house. Possibly. I was like 2 or 3. I can't really remember. I just remember walking into a shed and seeing that line on the shed. Weird. Then we have Troublesome Engines, which is also the first one with Percy. Henry the Green Engine, which is actually the only one out of all of them which has got 5 stories in. Most of them only have 4. What's interesting is that these are only like little thin books, so you can get through them in about half an hour, if that. Toby the Tram Engine, Gordon the Big Engine, Edward the Blue Engine, 4 Little Engines. Now this is the first time we actually see the narrow gauge railway, which is interesting because I haven't watched the cartoon since I was about 6, but I remember them showing up very late in the lifespan. I don't know why, it just kind of was weird. Oh god, that face. The early Thomas, right, the faces are actually quite weird indeed. Percy the Small Engine, 8 Famous Engines. This is actually one where most of the stuff is actually pretty much content for only in here. Yeah, it's weird. This is when Thomas kind of became really popular, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to do a thing with them, and they'll go on to be popular, and it breaks the fourth wall. it does do that a lot. Duck in the diesel engine. As you can, I believe this is kind of when they started changing the art up a little bit as well, because you can see it's all looking a bit different and a bit more stylized. The little old engine and the twin engines. So most of these stories that we've already discussed are kind of ones that we've already kind of looked at, that are the original ones, I would say. In fact, Jesus Christ, look at the faces on them two. Yeah. Branch line engines. Gallant old engine. Stepney, the Bluebell engine. This is when the art style definitely changed. In fact, this is an older version of it, I believe. As you can see by the top of here, kind of compared to the others. It's very much, I really like the stylized font in it. No, this is actually still a reprint of it, I believe. I can't remember, but this is when like the artwork completely changed, and this is the artwork I kind of remember the most when reading these books. These were the ones I was buying when I was very young, because these are the stories that they weren't animated or anything at that point. Mountain engines, which is one I remember being very, very ill at one point and getting these, and it was interesting because this is the Culdefell Railway in what do you call it? It's in Snowdonia Mountain. So yeah, these are the trains that go up. This was never actually animated. However, they actually did release toys of the trains, which was pretty cool. This was kind of when I started getting out of Thomas originally, and yeah, but I remember being very, very ill and buying this book and being very sick on the way back. Weird, the stuff that you kind of remember. This one is very interesting because this one was always the one that nobody could find a copy of when I was originally into it. I was probably about 6 or 7, and someone I knew had every single volume that had been released, and this was the only one they couldn't find, and this ended up being pretty much the golden goose. I mean, it's not like uncommon or anything. I think it was just at the time I just never had anything, and then we kind of read it and I was just like, it's pretty boring, to be honest. It's just a boring little story, and yeah. Mainline engines. This is when again they kind of changed up the art style a little bit. It's kind of, you can see it evolving over the time period, but it's like, yeah, this one looks a little bit more dirty and stuff like that. Next up is small railway engines. Now this one is interesting because I have actually visited, well, actually the same for the mountain ones, I have actually visited the railway that this one is based on quite a few times. It's based on a little railway in Eskdale, and we actually have, we actually often go to a little country house, and at the very base of that house is a green, and it's got a station, and these trains run through that station, and you can get on them, you can have a little ride. I mean, it's only like 5 mile long, but it's a nice fun day out, and it's always one of the highlights of the holiday. In fact, it's probably the thing what kind of kept me lingering on with this series, is because like I said, I've been to that holiday a few times, and every time we go on this little railway for one day, but any other day you always see the trains running, and it's one of those nice little things when you can actually attach them to the real world a little bit. Next up we have Enterprising Engines and Oliver the Western Engine. Now this was my favourite one for a long time. I really remember this one being a really fun one. I don't know why, I just really enjoyed it, and yeah, it was always interesting to read. I haven't read it in a long time, but it's one that I'm looking forward to going through again. In fact, I must say something, I haven't read any of these except maybe the first one, and probably is about 15 years or so. At one point I was kind of buying them all up when I could, and then I kind of stopped buying them because I didn't have any money, and I was just like, I'll keep them for later, and then I kind of forgot about it. Duke the Lost Engine. Another one I had for when I was very young, and I don't know, I liked it back then, but I don't know if I haven't read it in a long time again. Again, this is another one I remember I had it in the older version, so I kind of think that's a bit destroyed, or at least most of these ones I've rebought because I just don't know where the old ones are, and yeah. But we'll look at some of the older versions, because when I bought these, some of them are the older versions, which it's slightly annoying. Tremay Engines, which is actually the very last of the original series, the Reverend Awdry series. In fact, I think this is the very last one that was actually adapted into the cartoon, which is strange because there's quite a few more series out there. So first up, I think this is first up. Yeah, first up is the the Christopher Awdry era is really useful engines. As you can see, the art style has changed yet again. But I think there was quite a bit of a distance between them, and this was kind of when the cartoon had taken off and was really popular. So obviously they tried to make it look more like the cartoon. I say the cartoon. Is it a cartoon or is it live action? It's used via it's used like stop motion and stuff like that. So like model railways. So that kind of is realistic. It's a cartoon. It's animated still. Great little engines. I don't. This is an older version of it. As you can see on the side, it hasn't aged particularly well. Obviously, the spine's a bit more loose and broken, and the glue inside isn't particularly great. In fact, I'm sure I've rebought this one a few times, and I'm sure every time I get it, it's always. There's one I bought and it was absolutely completely wrecked, which was a complete shame, and I ended up buying it again. I don't know which one it is though. Toby Trucks and Trouble. So as you can see, most of the ones that we kind of have for these this new era, they're all existing stories and they're all existing based on original stuff. I don't know if these are in order now. I think they're kind of just going in any order, because the next one on top of it, here's the very last one. Thomas Comes Home. Interestingly enough, this one actually only has Thomas on the last page. They wanted more Thomas-based stories, and Christopher Awdry gave him them, but he kind of just like worked around it by kind of doing like little stuff where it was like other stories and one Thomas-based one, which I kind of do like the idea of that, because it. Having a main character that's so popular and then having the others, and then it's just like, yeah. I'm leaving this one till last. In fact, I think we're kind of like looking at the last ones here. So we have Henry and the Express, Wilbert the Forest Engine. Now this is one I remember getting years ago. Or was it this one? Or there was another one called Wilbert and the Forest Engine and Jock the New Engine. Jock the New Engine is the one that is on the Eskdale Railway, and actually is the one that I remember reading quite a lot. That's the one that you tend to ride on if you go on the Eskdale Railway. It tends to be Jock or Northern Rock or whatever he's called at the moment. Or what he's originally called even. But yeah, I do remember this one, but I don't remember ever if I owned it or if it was one I always used to see. It used to always be in the shops. See, the weird thing was is that the early ones were kind of uncommon, but these ones were more in print, whereas now it's the other way around. You can get the early ones easily, but these Christopher Awdry ones are more difficult to find, annoyingly. New Little Engine. And finally we have two. Now these two are ones that were done a lot later than the others. They've got Thomas and Victoria and Thomas and his friends. Thomas and Victoria was done, I think it was done in celebration of, does it see it on the back? I think, is this the 50th anniversary one? I don't know, but I think this was one where they kind of wanted to try and bring it back a little bit, and then it was just like, oh, bring it back, but then I don't think it sold quite as well as I expected. And this one was done, I think, on the 50th anniversary, and this was the one that kind of finished the whole thing off. In fact, it's the only one that kind of says the end. And what's interesting enough is that this one feels a lot thicker than the others. And yeah, that's it. I know I'm missing a lot of ones. I see a lot of them. I'm probably missing about half a dozen from the Christopher Awdry era, which is a shame. I would love to be able to find them. I will try and get them every now and again. The one that's going to be the red herring, I think, is the one that is number 40, I believe, and that one is called Thomas and the Fat Controller's Engines. Oh no, that's number 39. And the reason that one's difficult is because, I don't know, it just seems to be harder to find. I don't know why, it just seems to be extremely harder to find compared to the others, which is a huge shame. In fact, I'm looking at these and I'm sure I'm actually missing one that I actually bought. Thomas and the Twins, I'm sure I had that one at some point, but maybe not. The other one, more about Thomas the Tank Engine. Anything that actually has Thomas's name on team seems to be the harder ones to get. Now, the reason I collect these is they are quite fun. The fun little reads, and I want to pass these on to another generation at some point. As much as I love manga, it's not something I can really pass on straight away, and I hope that a future generation of my family will enjoy these too. If not, if I've got a full collection, they'll be worth something someday, possibly. And it's probably easier to sell them all in one batch than it is to sell them all separate. Yeah, but yeah, I do enjoy these two for what they are, just fun little reads. I don't exactly read them all the time, but it's nice to be able to see, oh yeah, I've got this from my childhood and I've managed to get the full set when I'm older. This was a huge part of my childhood and I wanted to just talk about it. I'm kind of interested in doing individual volumes and like talking about them and talking about where they were motivated from, fun little facts and stuff like that. If that's something that you guys are interested in, please let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more of this. And if you do like this, please leave a like, please consider subscribing, especially if you like manga and anime and figures, because that's what my channel's all about. This is a kind of an offshoot, just for a little fun thing. Thanks for coming, and thanks again for staying. Goodbye.
Nah, nah, nah.